News Radio 700 WLW.
So, Rachel, this all the machinations of what's going on right now and these foundless claims of voter fraud and on and on and on. But, you know, when Donald Trump is a private citizen, what are the possibilities? And what are the possibilities right now? I mean, it seems to me that all the challenges, I mean, it's the stories I've been reading, it's like a challenge comes up, it immediately goes down. A challenge comes up, immediately goes down. So, you know, I'm just wondering what the hell, where we're heading.
Yeah, and what's on the backside? If you're right, President Trump does become private citizen Trump legally, there's a lot of things on the other side of this that are waiting for him potentially.
Well, there's a lot to talk about with this fellow. He is a fellow in the invitation-only International Academy of Trial Lawyers, a fellow in the invitation-only American College of Trial Lawyers, and a fellow in the invitation-only International Society of Barristers. Quentin Brogdon, welcome back to the program.
Good afternoon, Eddie and Rachel. I see you two are holding down the fort in Rocky's absence.
Yes,
trying.
He's off doing his fun job. So, Quentin, let's start with this. What is going on right now? Are there any? Is there any basis for what's going on right now with these legal challenges and whatnot? And what do you see happening out of all this?
You're talking about legal challenges to the election or legal challenges?
Well, we'll get to that. But, yeah, I mean, no, the legal challenges to the elections right now with all these various, you know, challenging Georgia, or challenging every state, basically. Is there a basis for all this?
Well, the only basis would be if you accept the premise and you get proof that there's just massive fraud on an unprecedented scale. You know, Gore versus Biden involved hundreds of votes, not tens of thousands of votes. So you're going to need to find, the Trump campaign, in short, is going to need to find, you know, evidence of fraud involving tens of thousands of votes. The likelihood of that is small, regardless of whether you believe it or happened or not. The likelihood of gaining and obtaining any proof of that, such that, you know, and even if you do it in one state, if you're a Trump fan and you look at the math and the numbers and the electoral votes, it's going to have to be done in multiple states. Right. So the odds are low, quite frankly.
Quentin, it was something that's as big as this alleged voter fraud. Wouldn't people be coming out of the woodwork talking about it? Because one person can't keep a secret, let alone thousands of people that would, you know, potentially commit fraud, keeping secrets and being able to get those votes in a way that's illegal and then covering it up.
That's right. You raise a good point, Rachel. You'd have to believe, you know, and if I were arguing against voter fraud, what I would argue is this. You'd have to believe that the Democrats were sneaky enough and capable enough to steal the presidential election, but while they were at it, they forgot to steal the Senate, and they forgot to even keep all of the House seats that they had. And so they were either incompetent or very forgetful if they had this power to commit massive national fraud, by the way, which occurred in a number of Republican states, not just Democratic states. So that would be the argument against it, and you would presume somebody would have come forward by now if we had that kind of proof.
Well, there was a guy, the postal worker in Pennsylvania, I believe it was, who had claimed some kind of voter fraud and then recanted. So, you know, there's all kinds of nutbags walking around here these days. Let's just sort it out and get on with our lives.
Well, I know from how I make my living in courthouses that it's easy to make allegations and make claims. It's another thing to prove them with credible evidence. So, you know, of course, I haven't seen all the evidence, but just based on the news reports I'm hearing, I haven't seen the evidence or heard about the evidence of massive fraud that you would need to undo where it looks like the election is headed, which is Biden wins and becomes president on January 20th.
Quentin Brogdon is our guest. And, Quentin, let's switch gears here and go back to what we started out with. So when Donald Trump becomes a private citizen, do you see him being pursued for some of the alleged, again, we're talking alleged, crimes, tax chicanery and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Do you see people pursuing him, or are they just going to, like, you know what, he's gone now, let it go?
I don't see it all going away, but there will definitely be some political questions and considerations that will be weighed, particularly with respect to federal crimes, whether to go forward on those. Even before Donald Trump was president, he was no stranger to litigation. He had been in more lawsuits than any previous president, to our knowledge. And since he's become president, he and his lawyers, including the Justice Department, which technically works for us, the taxpayers, have claimed that the presidency grants him, in essence, total and absolute immunity. The United States Supreme Court, in a 7-2 decision, recently rejected that. But the Justice Department has a longstanding policy, in any event, that a sitting president cannot be prosecuted for criminal offenses, and Mueller cited that policy in electing not to make a determination on whether Trump obstructed justice in his report to Congress. But in any event, any presidential immunity stops when Trump leaves office. So courts that would have been hesitant to require him to testify under oath, we can't have our president sitting and giving testimony under oath all day when they're trying to run the country, but those considerations vanish. Any immunity he might have for things he did before he became president, arguable immunity vanishes. But most of the legal challenges he faces are civil, meaning the worst that can happen to him is he has to pay money. Right. Some are criminal, but charging a former president with a crime is most definitely unprecedented. But nevertheless, the legal threats he faces are real and substantial, and we could spend 20 minutes just walking through all the cases that are pending in New York. There are defamation suits followed by sexual misconduct accusers, separate and apart from the New York Attorney General and Manhattan DA looking into things. There's the potential for Michael Cohen and the hush money in the Southern District of New York. He was named, many believe, as an unindicted co-conspirator, so could criminal charges be pursued out of that? Benefiting from the presidency, violating the so-called emoluments clause, taking gifts from foreign governments. All these things are pending or potentially pending, and so it's going to be a political question. Biden has said it probably would not be very good for democracy for him to be prosecuted when he leaves office, but Biden's also said he would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision about whether to do that. So, it's kind of a banana republic thing where you prosecute the former president, and it violates at a minimum norms and expectations about peaceful transfers of power. So there may be decisions made by prosecutors and others to say it would just look bad to be going after him criminally after he leaves office. It would look like retaliation.
Do you think President-elect Joe Biden, if this all works out the way we think it will opt to pardon Donald Trump when he leaves office?
It's possible. Certainly Ford did that. Ford was a Republican who pardoned Nixon before any criminal actions were brought against Nixon. Right. And that established the precedent. You can do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think more probable, perhaps, is that Trump tries to pardon himself before he leaves office.
You know
can
what,
you
Quentin,
do that?
That's what I was going to ask you, because I've read, some people speculated about that. Is there? Can he pardon himself?
There's no specific prohibition of that in the Constitution, but it certainly runs against the idea that you don't serve as judge and jury on your own pending case. Ford pardoned Nixon before Nixon was charged with any crime, and there's a 19th century United States Supreme Court case that says a pardon can be exercised at any time, even before legal proceedings are instituted. So it could occur, and then some have even speculated that Donald Trump could resign before January 20th at some point, before Biden becomes president, and then Vice President Pence could become president and pardon then ex-President Trump.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, isn't it?
Well,
no doubt.
Quentin, with that, we'll let you go, and I'm sure we're going to be talking to you more and more here in the weeks to come. Thanks so much.
Take care, Eddie and Rachel. Have a good afternoon.